Welcome to Greek for a Week. I'm glad that you are watching another video. This is our diagram of 1 Thessalonians chapter 3 verses 1 through 5. This is the paragraph that we've been working on for a few weeks now, and I've titled this paragraph Paul Sends Timothy. So this is the opportunity that Paul has to be in Thessalonica without actually being in Thessalonica. So you notice here on verse 1, you have the dia, which is therefore or wherefore, which ultimately is a result of what was discussed in chapter 2, and that's when Paul helped all of the readers, if you will, understand that Satan hindered him from being in Thessalonica. So it says here that he remained in Athens alone, sent Timothy. So we'll see that here in the diagram on the next slide. Then we'll give a couple of explanatory clauses that will help us see what's important about the afflictions portion of this particular passage. And then you'll see another reason here as to why he sends Timothy. So let's go to the next slide and we'll see again, therefore, this is how Paul reconciles, if you will, the two paragraphs together. The previous paragraph in chapter 2 and then to chapter 3 here, verses 1 through 5. I have a causal participle here, labeled it as cause, because we could no longer endure, or we basically couldn't stand it any longer. So we reconciled that by being left alone at Athens, and we sent Timothy. And then he describes Timothy as our brother and fellow worker of God in the gospel of Christ. So I would contend here that these two phrases here, we were willing to be left at Athens and we sent Timothy, joined by the Chi. These would be two actions taken by Paul. In a sense, those two actions were taken as a result of Satan hindering him from being in Thessalonica. Two purposes for sending Timothy, and that was to strengthen them as well as encourage them. So you have ace ta plus the infinitive, that would be an infinitive of purpose. You have the chi here now joining also to encourage, another infinitive of purpose. And then really I would contend the third infinitive would be an infinitive of result. He's sending Timothy for the purpose of strengthening, for the purpose of encouraging, with the ultimate result that no one would be disturbed. And then the means by which that disturb would take place is by these afflictions. So Paul doesn't want the difficulty of what's taking place in Thessalonica, which is Acts 17. He doesn't want that to disturb them, to move them off of what he has already taught them. Now, let's explain, if you will, what he means by these afflictions. And I would contend the two gar clauses do that. He says, for you yourselves, and here's oidate, you know. And then the content of that knowledge is that we have been appointed for this. And I would contend the appointed for this is the afflictions based upon what's further explained. For indeed, when we were with you, what did we do? We spoke to you in advance. Again, about what? What was the content of our speaking? That we were about to suffer, just as also it came to pass. And then here is as you know. Here is you know once again. So Paul again is using their former knowledge. You know that afflictions were appointed for us. You know we were about to suffer. So I'm taking these two explanatory clauses to go back to the afflictions. Then Paul says, for this reason, when again, I could also again no longer endure, which is very similar to the longer endure up here. kind of comes full circle. I sent. And the purpose again that I sent is to know, ace top plus the infinitive, to know your faith, wondering whether the tempter had perhaps tempted you and our labor was in vain. So Paul's basically sending Timothy, he wants a report, and he wants to hear a good report, again, concerning their faith, so that they can remain strong despite the many afflictions that potentially will disturb them. So if we move on here to the next slide, again, Paul was willing and he sent Timothy. So those two aorist verbs kind of set the stage. This is where the reader can move forward in the paragraph. Again, he sent Timothy for two purposes: to strengthen and to encourage, with the result that they would not be disturbed by afflictions. And those afflictions were appointed. In other words, we were appointed for these and we were about to suffer. And then at the end, Paul says, for this reason, I'm sending Timothy to know specifically your faith. Strengthen and encourage, and then to know. So I think that'll be helpful because when we move forward in the next paragraph, verses 6 and following, we'll get to hear the result of Timothy's visit, and it's a very good report. Have a great week.